Okay, so a very good evening to everyone, and a very warm welcome to the Into Legal World's special session on how to crack legal interview. Thank you so much, each one of you, for taking out time to join us today. We know interviews can be stressful, especially the corporate law interviews, where candidates often feel confused about what to prepare, how to present themselves, and what interviewer actually expect. Today's session is designed to give you real clarity from the inside. No generic advice, but practical insights, how to present themselves and what interview actually asks and expect. Today's session is designed to give you clarity from the inside, not just the generic advice. We are extremely privileged to have with us Mr. Gogoi, partner at Legacy Law Offices LLP, with over 15 years of experience in corporate law, contracts, M&A, due diligence, and advisory work. He has interviewed, hired, and mentored several lawyers over the years. So today, you are getting insights that can genuinely change how you approach your next interview. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. We are really grateful for your time. Sir, to begin, can you briefly share your journey in corporate law and how your career progressed as a partner?
Sure. Thank you, Charu, and welcome everyone to the session. So, as Charu has really put it, we want this session to be a more into a practical insight rather than some sort of a theoretical discussion. I'll definitely tell you as to how my career has progressed. I started on a very subtle and from a very humble background as an associate with a law firm called Udvadia Udeshi in corporate litigation. Now, this was in 2009 where I had joined corporate litigation and I had no idea as to what a corporate law practice is actually about. Now, with Udvadia, because it was more of a corporate litigation, so mostly the kind of matters that the firm dealt with were corporate litigation in terms of winding up of companies as well as certain mergers and acquisitions. But it was more with a litigation aspect. But then gradually, as I started working with this law firm called Udvadia, I started gaining insights into the most nuances and into the most interesting areas of corporate law. Now, there was my starting point and my interest for corporate law, which started growing within. Now, in order to understand a bit more as to what corporate law was on the theoretical aspect, I did a course, I did a master's course from NUGS. It was a 2-year course. Then it was a 2-year course. Now we have LLM courses for 1 year. But the LLM course, apart from LLM course, I used to be involved in certain paralegal activities as well as on certain corporate seminars. Now, again, I joined a small law firm back in 2015, and then I joined Kocher in the same year, in the year 2015, wherein I started my role as an associate, and then I rose to the position of a principal associate. And my actual journey of corporate law and corporate practice started from where I joined Kocher and Company. Now, at Kocher, as you would know, it's a full service law firm with various verticals in corporate law. It deals with mergers and acquisitions, it deals with IP, it deals with labor employment, and various other fields of corporate law. Now, my actual journey and my actual learning process for corporate law started. I worked with Kocher and Company for around 7 years, and I came out of Kocher in around 2022 January. And I just to have an insight as to even how in-house corporate law, corporate organizations work, I joined Apollo Hospitals in the year 2022. Although it was a brief stint, but then I also gained insights as to how an in-house organization works. So thereafter, I joined back a law firm, Legacy Law Offices, in the same year, 2022. And almost it has been around 12 to 13 years of my practice, after which I became a partner. Now, Charu, this is how my journey can be really put in a very small nutshell.
Okay, sir. That was really inspiring, especially the part how your early years shaped your understanding of practice. And I think many young students and even me can underestimate how important are the foundation years doing paralegal and everything. So, sir, my second question is, when you interview fresh law graduates or the junior associates, what are the top 2 or 3 qualities you personally look beyond academics?
Of course, academics is important. It is definitely important. But if you ask me as to the qualities that you really require to sustain in a law firm, I would say the first important quality is your curiosity to understand and to learn new things. If you do not have that fire or the zeal within or the curiosity to understand new legal phenomenon or new legal affairs, it'll be difficult for you to keep abreast of all the happenings in this corporate legal world. The second quality which I feel is more important for a person or for a fresh corporate lawyer or for a graduate is his ability to communicate the knowledge which he has gained. It might be a small thing, it might be a bigger thing, but the way or the ability to communicate that particular knowledge which that particular lawyer has gained or whatever the student has gained is very, very important. Now, apart from these two qualities, I think the ability to work hard, the ability to show that you can work hard amidst pressure, amidst tight situations, is also another quality which is more looked at while we are interviewing lawyers in law firms. Now, I do not say that these are exhaustive qualities. There are certain other qualities also, but these are two, three qualities that I can really put it in front of you.
Okay, sir. So that's really a big eye opener. And I think it's more about mindset, clarity, communication, and willingness to learn. And it's not just about the CV. Thank you so much, sir. So, my third question is, from your experience, what are the most common mistake candidate makes in the resume or during the first few minutes of the interview?
I will definitely explain this, but I will have to also give you two, three illustrations because these are certain live examples which we are facing while we are interviewing candidates. Let me tell you the first thing. The first thing is that we should not be exaggerating more than what we have really put in our CV. I'll give you an example. Let us consider that I find a particular sentence in someone's CV saying research on corporate law. Now, when I ask such person further as to what actually you did in research on corporate law, the person says that I worked on so and I worked on the Companies Act. When I ask him or her further as to what actually did you work in Companies Act, he or she tells me that I have worked on change of registered office. When actually even I probe further to ask such person as to what actually you did in such proposition on change of registered office, he or she tells me that I simply found out certain two, three sections from the Companies Act and gave it to my senior associate or the associate or the person who assigned me such a task. Now, law firm interviewers can come to know whether the person has actually done that particular task in a few minutes. So that is why it is important that you should not be exaggerating more than what you have done, because it immediately starts creating a negative impression if you start exaggerating. The next thing which I find is you should be honest. Not knowing a particular thing is not a problem, but justifying something which you're not even sure of is another greater mistake that you might really commit while you are interviewing. It is not necessary that you might be knowing everything in this world. There are a lot many topics under corporate law. You might be aware of some topics, you might not be aware of some topics. But that does not mean if you're not really sure of any particular topic, or if you're not sure of any particular justification which you're really giving, you should not be really giving such justification. Another quality another phenomenon which I've observed in some of the interviews is that candidates start bad mouthing their previous employers. I'm talking about this only about those candidates who have some sort of prior experience. So some candidates start foul mouthing their previous employees, saying that I did not like that particular person because I did not like my earlier employer because he was shouting on me, or the work atmosphere is so bad, it is so toxic, it is so horrible over there. Now it immediately starts creating that sort of a negative impression. So you should be avoiding these main mistakes, these common mistakes while you are getting interviewed. The point is to put two, three ideas which you are very sure of on in a very clear and a crisp manner. You should not be bluffing. You should not be citing something which you're really not sure of.
Am I audible? Okay. Thank you so much, sir. That was perfectly a honest advice. And even I realized that, back bitching the previous employer or something that may really offend, because today you are back bitching your previous employment and now you will do the same with the one you're giving interview. So I think that was a practical advice, and I'm sure that many participants are realizing that the small things like clarity, the communication, and how you introduce yourself, how you give answers to the question is really very important.
Well,
So my
Charu, let me also add to it, because bad mouthing it creates an instant negative impression, because the person who is interviewing you, he might have a feeling that tomorrow if this person leaves my organization, he will even start bad mouthing my organization as well. Now, there are certain ways as to how you can need to put things. Even that, but the earlier atmosphere might not be convenient. It might not be convenient for you. It might not be good for you. It might not have been that much the way you had expected. But there's a way to put things. Because in courtrooms, we put things before judges. We also need to know how we need to put those things. Because things only when put in the right perspective, in the right manner, that works.
true, true. So many students feel confused, like about how much technical knowledge is expected in corporate interviews. So how deep should they prepare? Like if I'm a fresher and I want to go for a corporate law firm, so how deeply should I, prepare for it?
Well, I would like to correct it by saying that it is not technical knowledge, but it is conceptual clarity. Now, when I say conceptual clarity, it means you need to have a basic understanding of the concepts in the practice area in which that particular law firm, where that particular law firm is working. Say I'll just give you an example. Let us consider you are applying for a position in the labor employment practice of a particular law firm as an associate. So the interviewer has a basic expectation that you should be aware of certain very basic 2 3 concepts in the upcoming labor codes, which are the current hot topics of discussion as of now. So if you're not aware of these basic codes, please try and of these basic concepts, please try and grasp these basic concepts. Please try and attend a seminar, or please try and gain insights from practitioners. Now, the point is, if you're unable to even communicate those basic concepts to your interviewer, what happens is, how do you give a confidence to that particular interview that tomorrow such person, if he lands up in your particular role, say let us consider an associate, how will he apply those basic concepts to certain practical situations that really come up? So that is why understanding basic concepts is very important. It is not necessary that you need to memorize. It is not necessary that you need to know a section by heart, but you should understand as to how that particular section or how that particular principle goes. For example, if you want to understand what is the difference between an agreement and a contract, so most of the students or most of the people will say that an agreement enforceable by law is a contract. Now, I ask them whether you think an agreement and a contract are one and the same. So the immediate response to that is, no, sir, we do not think agreement and contract are one and the two are one and the same thing, because it should be only in contract, it should not be in agreement. So my immediate question to them is, look at this particular service agreement. Why is it called a service agreement and why is it not called a service contract? So the basic understanding behind that is that an agreement enforceable by law is a contract. So that means that even if it is the nomenclature of that particular document is not a contract, you call it as a service agreement. If that document, if that particular paper has all the essential elements by which it can be enforced before a court, you can enforce your rights, your obligations, your particular terms, the consideration aspect, dispute resolution clause. If you can enforce all these terms, that only means that that particular paper or that particular document is a contract. It doesn't depend on what that particular nomenclature is. It does not depend how we name that particular document. It only depends on how that particular document can be enforced.
Thank you so much, sir. And that has made a lot of sense. So instead of just mugging up the section, we students should focus more on understanding how the law really works and how it is in real picture. Thank you so much, sir. It was
Absolutely,
really helpful.
absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
I was also about to answer the same way you answered it. So, my next question is, how important are HR or personality based questions in corporate interviews? And what is a good way to answer questions like, why should we hire you, or something like that?
Well, in law firms, you have two different rounds. The first round is essentially a HR round, and the second round is where a technical round wherein the partner or that particular practice head would come and interview you. The first part is essentially called an HR round because it is the human resources office of or the vertical of that particular firm which tries to understand your personality. Now, these questions are important because law firm HRs want to test if you can sustain yourself in a team. Now, because law firms are more about teamwork, if you are unable to sustain yourself in a team, sooner or later, you might feel burnt out. You might feel that you are no longer accustomed or you do not belong to that particular place, which will create frustration, as well as it will immediately start hurting you and it will start creating a pain point for you, and wherein you'll feel like that every day I should be leaving this particular place because this place has again become toxic for me because my team members are not cooperating with me. So HR questions are a way to test whether you have that particular sustainability to work along with the team. Because in mergers and acquisitions, let us consider in a merger and acquisition deal, you are really required to work in a team because it is not a one man's job. It is not a one person's job. You cannot just do it alone. There are various ways and various verticals as to how you need to do a merger or a due diligence deal. You would require definitely a team set. Each team member would contribute to that particular deal because someone is well enough to understand labor laws, so he would contribute on the labor law aspect. Someone is good enough on the litigation front, so he would contribute to the litigation front. Someone is good enough on the real estate part, so he will contribute to the real estate part. Now, it is a conglomeration of all these qualities by which proper merger and acquisition deal happens. You might have seen on LinkedIn. That is why while law firms really create posts, something like that so and so team worked on this particular mergers and acquisition deal, so and so competition partner assisted in this deal, this real estate vertical was supported by so and so partner, whereas litigation was supported by so and so partner, pharmaceutical division is supported by so and so partner. So it is actually a team effort that really helps you in sustaining yourself. Now, one more reason why HR questions are important is because it also tests what your leadership skills are. Because sooner or later, if you are able to sustain yourself, if you prove yourself to be well adapted to that particular law firm, you grow. So you start getting promotions. So one day there is a possibility that you might become a partner. So once you become a partner, then you lead a team. So if you're a partner, it is not necessarily that you need to only have technical knowledge. You need to also know as to how you need to run a team. Now, those HR questions are also a way to find out, or they're somewhat intriguing to find out as to whether you have actually those leadership skills or you can develop those leadership skills in future. Now, this is another way how the HR tests you, trying to find whether you have that particular adaptability to accustom yourself to a law firm environment. Coming to the second part of your question, Charu, very important question. Why should we hire you? Now, I will probably have to explain it in two different manner, in two different ways. One is with respect to students, law students, freshers. And I think the second part would be for professionals who have some years or say 1 or 2 years or 2 to 3 years of experience. Now, for freshers, they have very little to say. They might not have been accustomed to prior experience. So all they can say is what is the connection between the law firm's practice and the kind of mood codes they took took up, the kind of papers they did, or the kind of paralegal volunteer work they did, or the kind of events they did. So that is how they can create a nexus, trying to justify as to how he or she would be really adaptable to that particular law firm environment or to that particular practice area. This question becomes a bit easier for professionals who have at least 1 or 2 to 3 years of experience, because then they can explain as to what skills or what qualities they picked up in their earlier organization, which would be helpful and which they're carrying forward to this particular organization where they're currently interviewing. Over to you, Charu. Charu, you're on mute.
Thank you so much, sir. That was very, very helpful. So basically, teamwork matters, and HR round somewhere evolve your teamwork, leadership qualities, and overall your personality. Thank you so much, sir. So my next question is: do you think that I just want to ask you, are there any red flags that immediately reduce a candidate chance during an interview? What are those red flags?
Well, one red flag which I've said is not to foul mouth their earlier employer. Now, apart from that, arrogance in expressing a particular opinion, fumbling on certain basic questions, as I said, basic concepts. If you start fumbling on certain basic concepts while the interview is going on asking you questions, it immediately creates an impression in the mind of an interviewer that you are lacking in the basic concept. One more thing is a red flag for me is that you might not be knowing everything, but if you again keep on justifying something, which I've already explained, that if you keep on justifying something which you really don't know and trying to prove it in some of the other manners just to prove that you are right, I think that is the biggest red flag which you should be avoiding. One more thing is with respect to inconsistency, as I already have put it, saying that if you have written a particular sentence in your CV and the way you're communicating or what you are putting it forth to the interviewer, if these are two different things, if they're poles apart as to what you have written in your CV and what you are actually discussing with your interviewer, that is an immediate red flag.
Yes, sir. So basically, it was important to hear. And sometimes we don't realize that attitude and over justifying and basic professionalism matter as much as of knowledge. Thank you so much, sir, for putting up. So my next question is: a lot of students worry that if they don't have top tier internships or a very good academics, they won't get a chance. What would you say to them? Like even I do not have very top tier internships, although I have a brilliant academics, but somewhere I lack in internship because somehow connections help to go to those internships. Even I tried many times, to mail to several organizations to a tier one law firm, but somehow I never got a revert on mail. But then my friend who applied through a connection, he got somewhere a internship. So I just want to know this.
Charu, let me put it in the way that connections, if you ask me connection, the word connection can be interpreted in many ways. Now, if you ask me whether connections are important, I will say yes. Because legal field, this is an arena where we need to build connections. Because legal profession is all about building rapport with the persons you can gel with or the persons with whom you share common legal ideas, and you need to build connections. Connection building is very, very important. But I also understand that if you start sending cold emails, you might not receive a particular response. Now, if you ask me why cold emails do not get a response, let me put it to you in the form of a demand and a supply phenomenon. Let us consider at the point wherein you have applied to a particular law firm in a particular practice area, and that particular law firm does not have any vacancy or does not have any particular opportunity in that particular practice area. At that point of time, there are chances that you might not get an immediate reward or you might not get any response at all. So the way to deal with it is to take up it politely. You may follow up with that particular law firm. You may follow up with that particular law firm, but please do not bombard their emails, their inbox as to why you did not get that particular reward from them. Please do not bombard them. Please do not keep them calling continuously, because just put yourself in that particular person's shoes, or the person who is dealing with 50 to 60 emails a day from various students from various fronts. How would you really feel? Just put yourself in that particular person's shoes. How would you feel if someone writes you an email and immediately starts following up and keeps on continuously calling? Now, whether that is the right perspective to do it, no. But definitely, there is no harm in follow up. You can follow up politely. You can definitely ask as to whether you have a vacancy in that particular organization, that particular point of time. If the firm has interviewed people in that particular practice area or that particular vertical, the firm will definitely respond to saying that, yes, we are interviewing so and so persons, because law firms generally like to hire whenever there is a necessity, wherever there is a need, wherever there are good projects, wherever there are need, whether there is a necessity or there's a need to hire lawyers. Law firms are not companies that they would start hiring people just because there's a need to hire people every year. Let me tell you, that is the difference between a law firm and a corporate organization.
Yes, sir. That was really very reassuring to hear. And I think many students lose confidence because even after trying a lot, somewhere the response likes. But thank you so much, sir. And my next question is that a common belief among students in this legal industry is that sometimes, connections matter more than merit. And somehow, you know, cold emails are not responded as I already said. So how should we move forward? Like, should we text someone on LinkedIn, or should we be very active on LinkedIn, or what should be done, sir?
See, as I said, connections definitely do matter. But it also matters as to whether there is vacancy or there is opportunity in that particular practice area. There's no harm in trying. There's no harm in writing an email and asking politely, sir, ma'am, do you have any particular recruitment drive going in that particular practice area? There's no harm in doing it. But just taking connection as a means, or to say that because somebody has a connection, that is why he got through, somebody does not have a connection, that is why he didn't get through. I really do not agree to this, because I have seen students coming even without connections based on their merit, because law firms generally love to recruit people, they love to entertain people who have merit, who have skills. They would definitely and always they would like to engage people who have merit. Merit is respected everywhere. Merit is respected in a law firm. If you can prove yourself in a law firm, there is nothing better than that.
Thank you so much, sir. So sometimes there might be a connection, but merits always supersede. Thank you so much.
Well, Charu, let me put it: a connection might land him or her an internship, but a connection cannot ensure that such person will sustain himself or herself in that particular law firm or that particular practice area. There is no guarantee. There is no guarantee that such person will sustain himself in a law firm just because he has made his way into an internship using a connection.
Yeah, connection may get an internship, but to be there or to get an PPO, you must have skills.
Absolutely. Very rightly
Yeah.
put.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, in your experience, what makes a candidate memorable after an interview?
Charu, there are certain qualities which by which you can understand whether the particular person is right for your particular law firm or no. Generally, law firms like to hire people with pleasant personality, as well as a person who is able to tackle questions with a calm composure, who is able to tackle questions with patience, and who maintains a calm composure right from the beginning till the conclusion of an interview. Because lawyer debates generally turn heated up, but during interviews, if you can understand what the interview is actually asking and what reply he or she wants, if you can gauge that particular phenomenon rightly, now that really helps. If you can do that, such person always remains etched in our memories. And definitely there's a chance that tomorrow or whenever there's a proper opportunity in that particular law firm, such person might definitely have an edge, because pleasant personalities, the way the person has presented or the way he has communicated whatever knowledge he has, he might not have a knowledge on the entire topics, on all the topics or all the questions that we might have asked him, but if he has sound knowledge and sound grasp on the things he or she has, definitely that creates a good impression, and that person remains in our memory. We remember that particular person, and whenever there's a good opportunity, definitely such person is reached out.
Thank you so much, sir. That was simple but yet very powerful. Being pleasant and being, having good communication skills, being honest can always leave a stronger impression than trying to sound like a perfect person or knowing everything. Thank you so much. Sir, I want to know that rejections can be demotivating. I think they are always demotivating. How should young lawyers deal with repeated rejections from firms?
Well, let me put it to you this way, that rejections, I understand rejections are definitely demotivating, but law firms, law is not only about law firms. Let me tell you, Charu, law is not only about law firms, it is much more than that. So you should not be ever demotivated by rejection. Rejection does not mean a rejection of your abilities, of your merit, of your knowledge. If you have that merit, if you have the qualities, if you have picked up skills in your profession, in your practice area, definitely rejections should not be demotivating you in any manner, because such rejections in interviews are only a way as to how you can learn what where you faltered, what were the gaps, what were the mistakes that you've really committed. Try and understand rejections as a means to improve yourself. Never think that rejections are demotivating, that is why you should stop doing everything. No. But definitely, of course, on a financial standpoint, if you ask me from a financial standpoint, it does not mean that if you need to simply go on attending interviews and just get rejections after rejections. You should be also try and explore alternative opportunities. I've seen various in-house counsels joining law firms after several years of being in an in-house counsel. I've seen several litigators who are excellent in their areas of corporate law, because even law firms reach out to such litigators who are well and excel in that particular area of corporate practice. Now, so therefore, law firm is not the end of everything. Law firm does not guarantee everything in life, but definitely yes, it bestows a good status on you, it definitely bestows a good impression on you, but it is not the end of everything. You should be always trying for gaining excellence, rather than saying that I've been in law firm, this is the end of it. No, this is not the end of it. Law is more than a law firm. That is what I would like to tell you again and again, everyone here, again and again.
Thank you so much, sir. It was a very grounding advice. And rejection must always be treated as a feedback, as you said, rather than, as a failure. Because law is very dynamic and we have multiple options to grow. Thank you so much, sir. Sir, my next question is, what mindset should young lawyers adopt in the first 3 years in corporate law? Like, what should be their basic mindset?
Well, when I see interns or whenever I get interns or first year associates, my first question to them is, what do you think corporate law is? What do you think corporate law is? So they tell me that corporate law is all about Companies Act. And we know that corporate law is only about Companies Act, it is nothing else. But to me, if you ask me very frankly, I have a different perspective. I feel that corporate law includes not only Companies Act, but it includes everything that is non-litigation. It could be intellectual property, could be corporate real estate, it could be tech law, it could be labor employment, it could be any field which is non-litigation. Anything that is non-litigation to me is corporate law. So it is not necessarily that if I want to work in corporate law, I should be working only in mergers and acquisitions, and if I do not get mergers and acquisition, that's the end of it. No, it is not like that. I might be excelling in IP laws. I might be excellent in labor employment, the way I do labor employment laws, or the way I can interpret labor codes, or the way I can interpret statutes, or the way that, or the kind of grasp or the command I have over labor employment laws, if I have that, so that is also another way how I can brand myself as a corporate lawyer. It is not necessary that if I do merger and acquisitions, if I do competition law, I am a corporate lawyer. If I do labor employment law, I am not a corporate lawyer. It is nothing like that. So the first thing is the change of mindset as to what corporate law is, because corporate law is essentially very, very vast. Let me put to you what Chanakya says. Chanakya says that a king is respected only in his land, but uh, a person with knowledge is respected everywhere. So if you are well excellent in your field, if you are well good at your skills, the skills that you picked up, if you can interpret law, if you can interpret your particular area's expertise, you are excellent in your area. There is nothing that can really deter you from success. Now, another mindset which they should be having is they should always start building connections, always build connections, because connection building or keeping yourself aware of what is happening in the practical world is very, very important. If you're a law student at the time while you're studying in law school, you can approach your professors, you can request them to connect you with practitioners who have excelled in a particular field. You can go for events wherein practitioners speak, to the extent you can afford those events. You can go for paralegal work. You should be making yourself visible in this particular phenomenon, but that does not mean you over exaggerate. As I've said, you should not be over exaggerating. There's a difference between making yourself visible, as well as making yourself visible, as well as over exaggerating. So there's a thin line between over exaggerating and making yourself visible. So these are two, three things which I think this is the kind of mindset which starting corporate lawyer who has 2-3 years of experience, or even a law student, should be really keeping up while they are coming into this corporate law practice.
Thank you so much, sir. So that was a refreshing perspective, and somehow I understood what is most important. First of all, we should reframe the definition of corporate law, because it includes much more than a company, from intellectual property rights to labor codes to everything that is non-litigation. And secondly, we must focus on learning instead of just deciding one field, or we must focus on dynamic field and we must decide one at a later stage. Thank you so much, sir. And my next question is, if you could, just burst one myth about corporate legal careers or interviews, what would it be? I think it would be like earlier only corporate law definition.
Well, the point is, what I would like to tell here is, it is not necessary that you can be branded as successful only if you join a top tier law firm. The first myth which corporate lawyers have is that if I get only into that most top law firm in this country, I am the only person who is successful, and then there's no one. No. Even law firms who are created as 2 tier or 3 tier, if you get good expertise, if you can learn things there, if you get good opportunity to learn over there, it is as good as success. This is one myth which I would like to break it. For a law student, I would say that interviews, if you ask me about interviews should not, the myth is that the moment they get a rejection, they think that it is a rejection of their merit, it is a rejection of their potential, it is a rejection of everything that they have. Now, I feel that this is the biggest myth, because a rejection in an interview is never a means, it is never a way where you keep on testing against a particular stand. It is never like that. Rejection, try and think of a rejection from a law firm only as a means, only and only as a means to understand where you lack at, where you need to improve, and try and understand what mistakes someone has pointed out. Try and improve those areas, try and improve your communication skills, try and improve your communication abilities, try and improve your knowledge to the extent you can. Try and be a master in the field that you are. Now, that is very, very important, because you cannot be a master of all. If you are well in labor employment, you can be good in labor employment. That does not mean that you need to be a master in labor employment, you need to be a master in intellectual property, you need to be a master in mergers and acquisitions, you need to be a master in competition. No, nothing like that. If you are well good enough to interpret competition law like no one can, Well, I can guarantee that there is nothing that can stop you from taking or going forward or becoming a good and successful professional in this world, in this in this profession. Now, if you look at what if you look at all those interviews of senior lawyers as well as judges, they always have a a struggle. They were always in their speeches, if I have seen, to the extent I have seen, they always say that this profession is not about overnight success. This profession never gives you overnight success. It is a means of continuous learning. It is a means of continuous perseverance, patience, as well as dedication that ultimately can make you successful. It is never an overnight success. It is not a movie at all. The way it happens in movie, that we might have seen a lot of movies, क्योंकि मैं झूठ नहीं बोलता, he gets and he shouts in a he shouts in court, and the next day he becomes the most top lawyer in that particular court. It is never like that. ऐसा नहीं होता. Over to you, Charu.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, and very nicely explained. And one more, a very good advice was, a master of all is master of none. So better focus on one thing and proceed ahead. Now it's over to students. I have asked all my questions. If anybody has the questions, please put your questions in the chat box. I will moderate it for you. So we have one question from Bushra Khan. Sir, if you were to give 5 to 6 pointers to a second or third year student who is going for a boutique firm interview, how do they prepare for the interview? What should be starting points? Also, what is your advice on how to stay updated with the legal happening? And should I only focus on legal advancement happening in my area of interest or in general?
Well, it is not only for a boutique firm, but I would say that I can give you a general advice as to how you should be tackling law firm interviews or corporate interviews. First thing, please stop dealing, or please stop assuming that a law firm interview is an exam. It is not an exam. It is not an exam in the way that you need not go and mug up things and then simply blurt it out there in an interview. Please, law firm interviews can guess that in a second. The next thing is, if you have knowledge of that particular field, well and good enough. If you do not have a knowledge in that particular law field, you should try and understand where that particular law firm or that particular corporate organization is in which areas that particular law firm or that particular corporate organization is involved. You should always read up 2-3 deals or certain works which these law firms have done. Now, this will help you in understanding what that particular law firm does or what that particular corporate organization does. It will also create a good impression if that particular interviewer asks you if you know about what our law firm does or if you know about what our particular organization does. It will definitely give you a good impression if you can answer that question. Along with that, keeping a calm composure, dressing up dressing up in a polite manner, dressing up in a formal manner, a good dressing sense that can give you confidence to understand, or for the person to really understand that you have that confidence to present yourself, you have good body language. Now, that is also very, very important. One more thing is that you should be able to tell whatever, you should be able to speak up whatever is there in your CV. Say if you've written something in your CV, you should be able to explain it to that particular person who is interviewing you. You should not be going back and there should not be a situation wherein you go back and start analyzing what you had written in your CV. They should really avoid it. If you're low on confidence, let us consider, if you're feeling low on confidence, you can try by doing a self-recorded session. Or you can even ask someone to ask you certain questions, a set of questions, and then you can answer and trying to take it like a mock interview, the way they do it for other aspirants like competitive examinations. You can also try doing that. Now, this will help you building confidence. This will help you in observing what your body language is. This will also help in understanding what your awareness level is and how your preparation is for that particular interview. Now, these are 2-3 things which I would like to definitely suggest to every person, be it an experienced person or be it a law student who is going for an interview.
Thank you so much, sir. So the must word, you must know about the organization, then you must have good communication skill as well as pleasant personality, Your dress up should be as per the corporate, what they expect, like a professional. And the last thing was you should be calm and composed. Thank you so much, sir. And the next question that is put up is, sir, how do you explain a 3, 4, 5 month career break? Like, I think they want to ask how to explain a career break to an interviewer.
Well, there are certain ways how you can answer this question. If you're probably you might have a career break because you might be even you might there might be a personal issue, or you might be having a particular academic break, or there might be certain xyz issues because of which you had to take a career break. The point is to be honest and explain that person as to why you had to take such sort of a career break, and not try and make a story as to why you had to take a career break. Now I'll give you my example. uh, if you ask me somebody, I have never been put this question, but I've been put this question by interns who have asked me, sir, why did you go and join Apollo Hospitals after so many years of law firm, and then why did you join back a law firm? Now I'll take my own example. It is like a career break in itself, because in those 8 to 9 months I did not work with a law firm. I was working with an in-house organization. Now, if I were to explain it in a manner that would be convincing for the interviewer, I would like to say that my law firm journey, I have done an extensive law firm journey right from 2009 till 2022, almost a 13-year journey. Now, after such a long journey with law firms, I was also interested to understand certain nuances of in-house corporate law. That is the reason why I had to, or why I felt that I should be taking up this challenge, and that is why I joined an in-house counsel. So there are ways to put up things, but the point is to be honest. We should not be bluffing. We should be honest to whatever is the reason is.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. So, being honest is the best option we can choose. So, the next question is of Guru. He is asking how to discover law firms that may be hiring. I think LinkedIn.
Well, these days there are many means how you can understand how a law firm is hiring. It could be a link. It could be LinkedIn. It could be bar and bench. It could be Legal India. It could be mouth to mouth. It could be a mouth publicity. It could be oral publicity. So there are various means how you can actually get to know whether that particular law firm is hiring. So you should have an active track of all these websites. You should keep an active track of LinkedIn. If you can understand, if you want to understand it right from partners or from experienced people, if you can get them to meet them in events, you can ask them, you can put that question to them directly. So are you considering any particular recruitment options in your firm or in your organization? If you can, there's nothing more better than that if you can directly ask that person. But yes, of course, that question should be politely, and it should not be a demand for a particular position, or not be a demand for a particular job. Definitely that question has to be put in the right perspective. That question has to be put in the right manner.
Thank you so much, sir. So, it may even be the target. Like, if my target firm is legacy, then I must visit their page and see if they're hiring. That can be also the potential way. So,
Of course, of course.
we have the next question. How should a recent law graduate with no experience approach law firm? I guess we have three people asking the same question.
I think I have already explained it, but let me put it to all of them once again. As a fresher, you cannot put up your prior experience. But the only way how you can convince that a particular law firm practice area is important to you, because you did a particular moot court in that particular field, or because you wrote certain papers in that particular field, because you did certain events, because you did certain work in that particular field. Now that those are the only areas how a fresher can really explain it to a law firm. Say, let us consider the law firm is hiring for a say for an IP in the IP division, in the IP practice. Now, let us consider that you might have written a particular paper on IP law, or you might have attended an IP event. But did you do something more than that? Did you publish a paper separately on your own? Did you attend an IP moot, or did you go for an IP seminar, which is for even for professionals, or did you take certain proactive participation in certain events? Now, these are the only ways how a fresher has to tackle. For I understand for freshers, it is difficult to show how they are actually good for that particular practice area or how they're related to that particular practice area. But these are the only ways how they can show it. For experienced professionals, I understand it is easier because then they can show the skills that they've taken over from the earlier organization, and then what they are carrying forward to this particular organization.
Thank you so much, sir. It was insightful. Now I have series of questions. Sir, how should a recent graduate, that has already been answered? Then how to prepare for a capital market interview? I think that's something you must have the knowledge of the field. Then next question is, what is good answer on how can you
I would like to answer that question as to how you should be preparing for a capital market interview, because we have tackled this question, this thing in one of your questions. I think you had asked me one question pertaining to, I think, commercial understanding,
Yes, sir.
right? So let me put it to you that if you're practicing for a interview in capital markets, you should be aware of what those IPOs or what DRHPs that particular firm has filed. You should be also aware as to what was the issue size in those particular DRHPs, or what was the issue size in those particular issues, as well as what were the objects of that particular issue. Because in a capital market practice, you need to not only understand what are the legal nuances, but also certain essential business considerations. Because capital market, the word capital market laws, if you ask me, capital market, it includes the term market, which clearly indicates that you need to have a commercial understanding of how the capital market works, how the secondary market works. So if you have good commercial knowledge, how issues run, or what issues the firm is really tackling, or what was the latest issue, or what was the price at which that particular share was listed last for that particular law firm, and what was the support that law firm gave into that to that particular issue. If you can read up on these aspects, if you can understand these particular aspects, definitely, if the interview asks you a question, that if you know what issues our law firm has tackled in a capital market interview, definitely you'll be able to answer all these questions with confidence, and definitely that increases your chances of getting an opportunity to work with that particular organization.
Okay, that was insightful, sir. Because somehow the questions will rotate around what they have done previously and how much you're aware of it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
The next question is, what is good answer to how can you contribute to your team? I think you have already answered this in a way fresher and experienced one. The next question is, do law firms ever consider hiring employee or interns who are not from NLUs?
Well, I am not from an NLU. Let me tell you, I am not from an NLU. If you see my career, except for my masters, I am not from an NLU. So first, please stop branding as if you're not successful if you're not from an NLU. NLU does not essentially say, no law firm essentially says that we will hire candidates only from NLUs. Has any law firm given such a statement? I don't think so. It is about merit. It is about merit, because whether it is an NLU or a non-NLU, merit is respected everywhere. It is just an impression. Please do not have that impression that non-NLU students are not respected, they do not have merit, they cannot succeed. It is never like that. Whether it is an NLU or whether it is a non-NLU student, please do not have any bifurcation. There is no bifurcation. No law firm does that bifurcation. Merit, skills, knowledge, the ability to present yourself, the ability to bind yourself with clients, the ability to communicate things well, all these things will help you in succeeding in this particular field.
Thank you so much, sir. So merit is important and NLU tag is not. Somehow it is. I individually feel it. But you being on a very dominating position today, so I somehow changed my perspective. No, anybody can do anything. So we have next question again. Sir, if a student is from a private university and has a good knowledge in basic subjects like constitutional law, so basically private university or top, tier 3 university, basically we have basic subjects like constitutional law and somehow at later stage like, intellectual property laws, and we're not much aware of M&A, capital markets and other aspect of corporate law. And that person want to go in corporate. But that person is very, he has good merit, he is good in academics. How can he land into a good tier law firm?
Well, I think I'll repeat my earlier answer that this is a profession which does not discriminate whether it is NLU, non-NLU, whether that person is from a top tier law college, not from a top tier college. No, it is about merit. If you can pick up good skills, if you can pick up good knowledge, definitely that's a means to succeed. Now, a person who wants to transition himself or herself from a non-corporate environment to a corporate environment, the way that can be approached is to understand what field or what practice area of corporate law he or she is really interested in. Try and understand what law firms are running in that particular field. Try and understand what corporate practice that particular firm does. What are the areas or what are the deals that particular law firm has done. You can go for seminars. These days we have seminars, we have webinars, we have certain various professionals speaking about practical aspects of dealing a particular topic. We have various refresher courses. We can understand the practical aspects, the nuances as to how corporate practice really works. Along with it, your knowledge, as well as understanding basic concepts, trying and understanding what actually are the skills required for such transition is very, very important.
Thank you so much, sir. So it has been a lot of questions. Just the last question to put up. If you have to give just one actionable tip to someone who has a corporate interview in the next 7 days, so what would it?
I think I've already explained much of the things, but it's not a tip. But as I said, just to sum up whatever I had said, that first of all, please stop taking stress that it is an exam. It is not an exam. Think about what think questions you might be asked. Know everything about your CV. Try and understand what you have written and what you can really communicate. Understand what works that particular law firm has done in that particular practice area, as well as I said, if you're again getting if your confidence is less, if you're low on confidence, try do these mock interviews. Now definitely these are certain actionable tips which I can give to a law student.
Thank you so much, sir. It was very insightful, and thank you so much for sharing very honest, practical, and insightful perspective with us today. And I'm sure that everyone here has picked up at least one takeaway they can immediately apply to the next interview. And sir, on
Absolutely.
behalf, yes, sir, and on behalf of Into Legal World, we truly appreciate your time and the time you have taken out for your, on the busy schedule and on the festival of Rang Panchami to guide, all the aspiring lawyers and all of us today. Session like these definitely make a, real difference because they show the reality of the profession, not just the theoretical part. And to everyone who have joined us today, thank you so much for being such an engaging audience, for putting up all the questions. We hope this session has given you clarity, confidence, and much more structured way to prepare for an interview. And I'm sure it has given you confidence because it has given me. And we will be sharing details of all the upcoming webinars very soon. So stay connected with Into Legal World. And thank you so much, sir. Wishing you all the very best for your legal career.
Thank you so much.
And have a great evening, sir. Thank you so much.
To all of you, have a great evening. Thank you. Bye bye.
Happy Rang Panchami, sir. Have a great day.